Was a massive disappointment in the ratings for them, certainly. We do know when you go and you look at through these charts, the first couple days it was out, because we have 3 days of Ironheart in these numbers, just like we had 3 days of Daredevil in these numbers. And Daredevil in those first 3 days had over 300 million minutes watched. So, and that was with less possible runtime than something like Ironheart. Yet we know that it hasn't matched that.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Dominique Thorne going off at the fans yet again in the midst of the Ironheart ratings disaster.
That is all ego. You would never find me with an ego like that, not with my fallopian tubes.
Comes to the numbers. Spoiler alert, kind of exactly what we expect. Ironheart ratings in the gutter.
Now Thorne delivered the following in a desperate play to salvage the series. I think Marvel fans, she says, just need to take a step back and to stop focusing on our support for both diversity and LGBTQ and claiming that as some form of a hidden message.
Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The Heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
And so in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slug.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused.
Now is that we know that Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, they're also engaging in damage control about this show, saying things like, don't trust the negative reviews, don't trust the trades, stuff like that.
Ironheart is the biggest L of Marvel of all time. The reactions are just spectacular. Supposedly smarter than Tony Stark. Bites an electric wire, sells her soul to gain magic powers, uses new powers to steal. What did the writers mean by this? Smoke detector beeps.
And they were doing everything in their power to really prop up this show. That's exactly why they had RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., some weeks ago going on talk shows to really say that Riri is the best thing to the MCU to represent the legacy of Tony Stark.
I can understand why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should.
The show that was supposed to carry Marvel into a bold new future just flatlined. And at the center of the wreckage, Dominique Thorne, once hailed as Marvel's rising star, is now making headlines for all the wrong reasons.
It deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this show. After I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that bad.
Ironheart, once hyped as the spiritual successor to Iron Man, didn't just underperform, it completely collapsed. And as the dust settles on one of the most embarrassing flops in Marvel history, Dominique's response has turned what could have been a quiet failure into a full-blown meltdown.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should.
But how did we get here? How did a character backed by one of the biggest franchises in entertainment go from breakout potential to zero viewership? And why is Dominique Thorne blaming everyone but herself? What you're about to hear isn't just another story of a failed show. It's a cautionary tale about arrogance, misplaced priorities, and how one actress may have sabotaged her own career before it ever truly began.
Ironheart might be one of the worst executed ideas ever in the MCU, because under all that garbage was actually potential.
Let's rewind the tape. When Marvel Studios first announced Ironheart, it was met with cautious optimism. Fans were curious, critics were intrigued, and Disney poured money into making sure this new show would represent the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Riri Williams, the teen genius who builds her own Iron Man suit, was supposed to be the next tech-savvy icon, an heir to Tony Stark's legacy in a post-Endgame world. And Dominique Thorne? She landed the role of a lifetime, a young, relatively unknown actress cast as the face of Marvel's next big series. This was supposed to be her breakout, her Robert Downey Jr. moment.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark gets like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, who is that? And she's like, I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark. And he's like, I like that girl. And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
And at first, it seemed like the stars were aligning. She was introduced in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, where she played Riri Williams with just enough presence to catch attention, but not enough to judge her performance fully. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they seemed. Production delays, shifting creative teams, unclear direction from Marvel. The show changed hands creatively more than once, and rumors started surfacing that Ironheart was struggling to find its identity. Was it a teen drama, a tech thriller, a social commentary disguised as superhero content? The more Marvel tried to fine-tune the formula, the more the show lost its original spark. And yet Dominique remained confident, maybe a little too confident. Instead of addressing concerns, she brushed off criticism, calling it premature and rooted in ignorance. In multiple interviews, she appeared dismissive of comic book fans who raised questions about her portrayal of Riri. She made it clear she wasn't interested in being a female Iron Man. She was forging her own legacy, a noble sentiment.
There is also way too much focus on the LGBTQ community by the fandom in a negative manner, and it just needs to go away, I think, for a healthy story to grow, and for Riri to really share her limelight with...
But the execution didn't match the ambition. And then there was the social media silence. As months passed and excitement faded, Dominique rarely engaged with fans or promoted the project in a way that felt genuine. No behind-the-scenes excitement, no clips, no connection, just a quiet, almost aloof presence that gave off one clear impression. She expected the show to succeed just because it existed. But Marvel fans don't work that way. They've seen great storytelling. They've seen charismatic leads carry entire franchises. And more importantly, they know when something feels phony. When Ironheart finally premiered on Disney+, the expectations were sky high. After all, Marvel had been grooming this show as part of their Phase 5 strategy. This wasn't some side story. They wanted Ironheart to matter. But the problem was, it didn't. From the very first episode, audiences felt something was off. The writing, clunky, the pacing, slow, the tone, all over the place. Instead of a grounded coming-of-age story or a tech-heavy superhero adventure, Ironheart played like a scattered collage of social commentary, shallow character development, and CGI-heavy action sequences that meant nothing. The critics noticed it too. Early reviews were savage. Phrases like hollow, uninspired, and trying too hard started showing up in headlines. YouTubers and commentators weren't kind either. Even Marvel fans struggled to finish the first few episodes, and many didn't bother watching beyond that. But the real shock came weeks later, when viewership data, or lack of it, began leaking online. Reports claimed the viewership had dropped by over 75% by episode 3. Forums lit up with fans saying they quit midway. Social media was flooded with memes comparing Ironheart's performance to forgotten Marvel flops like Inhumans. But this time, there was no theatrical release, no box office buffer, just raw streaming numbers. And those numbers were terrifying. By the final episode, some sources reported the show was pulling less than 100,000 views globally. On a platform like Disney+, that's basically invisible. Some Reddit users joked that even She-Hulk looked like a masterpiece in comparison. And the worst part? Marvel said nothing. No press tour, no behind-the-scenes interviews, no hints at a season 2. Just silence, which is usually Disney's way of saying, let's pretend this didn't happen. And in the middle of it all, Dominique Thorne, still silent, still absent, acting as if none of it had anything to do with her, until she finally snapped. But what she did next only made things worse. As Ironheart's numbers hit rock bottom, Dominique Thorne's silence became louder than anything she could have tweeted. Fans noticed, critics noticed, even some Marvel insiders reportedly noticed. And when she finally decided to speak out, it wasn't with humility, reflection, or even acknowledgement. It was with heat. In a now-deleted Instagram Live, Dominique went on what many described as an unfiltered speech. She dismissed the negative reception as a reflection of society's refusal to evolve. According to her, the show's failure wasn't due to bad writing or poor execution. It was because audiences weren't ready for a black woman leading a superhero series, a statement that immediately lit the internet on fire. Because here's the thing, fans weren't angry that the character was a black woman. They were angry that the show was bad. They were angry that a character with incredible comic potential had been reduced to a bland, one-dimensional caricature wrapped in overproduced fluff. They were angry that Dominique seemed more interested in blaming the audience than in accepting any role she might have played in the flop. Worse, she doubled down. In follow-up posts, she suggested that she put more depth into Riri Williams than Marvel deserved. She claimed she had pushed for rewrites that were ignored, and hinted that Marvel executives were tone-deaf to her creative input. Whether that's true or not, the optics were devastating. It didn't read like a woman defending her work. It read like someone melting down after getting hit with reality. The reaction was immediate. Twitter threads picked apart her interviews, highlighting past comments where she'd dismissed fan feedback as hate. YouTube commentary channels tore through her statements line by line. One viral clip showed her ironically preaching about authenticity while being completely out of touch with the very fan base she needed on her side. Even Marvel stans began to turn on her. Reddit threads exploded with frustration. She had one job, one post read. All she had to do was respect the character and deliver. Instead, she gave us attitude and excuses. The damage was done, and behind the scenes, the silence from Marvel grew even colder. No public defense, no press statements, no "we stand with Dominique," just nothing. And that kind of corporate corporate silence? It only means one thing. They're cutting you loose. It's rare to see a Marvel show completely vanish from the cultural radar, but Ironheart managed it. After weeks of bad buzz, the finale landed with a thud. No cliffhanger, no tease for a second season, just a quiet, awkward ending that felt less like a series conclusion and more like Marvel giving up. Meanwhile, third-party analytics painted a savage picture. Industry trackers reported viewership decline of over 90% from the premiere to the finale. Fan sentiment was abysmal. Online ratings hovered near the bottom of Marvel's catalog, neck and neck with Inhumans and Secret Invasion, two shows considered the MCU's biggest duds. But this wasn't just a flop, this was a freefall. According to some insider reports and heavy fan speculation, the final episode of Ironheart recorded such low engagement on Disney Plus that the algorithm actually stopped recommending it. You read that right. Disney Plus's own system gave up on its own show. For a Marvel series, that's unheard of. And that's when Dominique snapped again. In a cryptic tweet, she wrote, "You think you can erase me, but I'm not built to disappear. I built Ironheart from nothing. I'm the character now." It was the kind of post that could have been inspiring if it wasn't coming right after a massive collapse and public backlash. But instead of rallying support, it made things worse. Fans clapped back hard. "You didn't build anything," one comment read. "You were handed an opportunity and burned it to the ground." Another viral tweet said, "Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man. You're just someone who played Riri in a show no one finished." And as the noise grew, Dominique's social media presence began to vanish. First, comments disabled. Then, older interviews scrubbed from her official profiles. Finally, her Instagram disappeared entirely for a few days, just long enough for speculation to spin out of control. Was she stepping away? Was Marvel pulling strings behind the scenes? Some even suggested she'd been silently fired from future Marvel appearances, though no official confirmation ever came. But one thing was clear, the meltdown was complete. From promising newcomer to one of the most controversial Marvel leads ever, Dominique Thorne had become a symbol, not of representation, but of what happens when studios chase optics over substance, when egos collide with expectations, when someone believes the role guarantees success without actually earning it. And as the smoke clears, the question remains, is this the final nail in Ironheart's coffin? If you thought the meltdown ended with Dominique's cryptic tweets, think again. The backlash wasn't just loud, it was relentless. And what started as disappointment quickly turned into full-blown outrage. Commentary channels pounced. Within hours of Dominique's video, YouTube was flooded with breakdowns, memes, and savage takedowns. Creators who had once given the show the benefit of the doubt were now picking it apart, frame by frame. One viral video titled, "Ironheart: How to Destroy a Franchise in 6 Episodes," racked up over 1 million views in a weekend. Another called Dominique the face of Marvel's biggest embarrassment. Even casual fans started joining the pile-on. TikTok was flooded with clips roasting the show's special effects, stiff acting, and awkward dialogue. The hashtag #IronheartFail hashtag started trending, and it wasn't just trending for a day. It lingered, haunting the show like a digital obituary. But perhaps the most savage reaction came from within the fan communities Marvel once depended on. Reddit. The Marvel Studios subreddit became a battlefield. Posts titled, "Why Ironheart Doesn't Deserve a Season 2" and "Dominique Thorne Needs to be Recast" soared to the top. Even on Marvel's official Instagram page, unrelated posts were taken over by angry fans demanding answers. It was relentless. And yet, there was still nothing from Marvel Studios. That silence spoke volumes. No one was defending Dominique. No one was defending the show. Not Kevin Feige, not the writers, not even the minor cast members. It was as if the entire Marvel machine had collectively agreed to push the self-destruct button and walk away. Meanwhile, media outlets couldn't resist the spectacle. Headlines started stacking up. Ironheart bombs? Is Marvel losing its magic? Dominique Thorne doubles down after fan backlash. Disney's 100 Mamelos risk that no one watched. What could have been a small disappointment turned into an industry-wide conversation. Not just about Ironheart, but about Marvel's future, about the risk of overexpansion, about the cost of prioritizing messaging over storytelling. And at the heart of it all was Dominique Thorne, watching her breakout role collapse into a cautionary tale. By the end of that week, she had become a symbol of what fans hated most about the new era of Marvel. Marvel has had flops before. Eternals, She-Hulk, even Secret Invasion barely made a ripple. But Ironheart was different, not because it failed, but because it was erased. Think about it. No second season tease, no future crossover announcements, no press tour, no behind-the-scenes featurettes, nothing. It was as if Marvel wanted to pretend it never existed. And that, more than anything, signaled just how bad things really were. Insiders began to leak whispers that Ironheart had quietly been removed from internal Marvel plans. Merchandise tied to the show, already limited, was pulled from Disney Store listings. Rumors swirled that future appearances by Riri Williams had been put on indefinite hold. And Dominique? Her name was conspicuously absent from Marvel's updated slate of upcoming projects. For a studio that once built entire franchises around actors like Chris Evans and Tom Holland, Dominique Thorne was getting the opposite treatment, radio silence. But here's the kicker. Some fans say this was inevitable. From the beginning, the project felt forced. It was rushed, undercooked, positioned less as a story fans needed and more as a checkbox on a corporate diversity spreadsheet. And Dominique, instead of embracing the challenge and winning people over, treated the role like a guaranteed win. She didn't engage with fans. She didn't elevate the character. And when things went south, she she blamed everyone but herself. In an era where fan connection is everything, Dominique missed the moment. And Marvel? They've been here before. They know how to quietly remove a character without saying a word. No press release, no funeral, just a slow fade into the background, never to be mentioned again. So, is this the end of Ironheart? It sure looks like it. The show's viewership collapsed. The lead actress alienated the fan base, and Marvel has moved on like it never happened. No reshoots, no redemption arc, just a digital graveyard where Ironheart used to be. And Dominique Thorne? She didn't just lose a role. She lost the trust of millions of fans, and maybe even her place in Hollywood's biggest franchise. Not long ago, Dominique Thorne was being called the future of Marvel. Magazine covers, red carpet appearances, glowing praise from Disney insiders. It looked like she was on the brink of superstardom. But stardom doesn't come from height. It comes from connection, from humility, from rising to the moment when all eyes are on you. And Dominique, she looked away. She treated the fans like critics, treated criticism like hate, and treated the show like it was guaranteed to succeed because of what it represented, not because of what it actually delivered. That was the miscalculation. Marvel gave her the keys to a kingdom, and she drove it straight off a cliff. And now, Ironheart is more than just a failed show. It's a symbol of what happens when storytelling takes a backseat to studio agendas, when lead actors forget who they're performing for, when the foundation isn't respect but entitlement. It didn't have to be this way. Riri Williams could have been iconic. She could have been a role model, a fresh face in a new Marvel era. And Dominique Thorne could have used this as a launch pad to something massive. Instead, she walked away with a show no one watched, a role no one wants, and a reputation no one's defending. And here's the real kicker. Marvel? They'll be fine. The face? They'll move on. But Dominique Thorne, she's the one left holding the pieces. Sometimes the fall isn't from failure. It's from refusing to admit it. And if Ironheart was her big break, then what we just witnessed was the breaking point. Dominique didn't just lose Ironheart. She lost the hearts of everyone who ever gave her a chance.